Okay, Taf Kuf Yud Zayin. We are about to start Sif Bet. Just from the last Siman, we just pointed out, how can you give tefillin on Yom Tov as a gift? So it was fully finished, right? You can put it on as is. It's not like it doesn't need to be stitched up anymore. So that's when it's okay to give it. And what about the issue of muksa? Right? So I'll just point out, again, we're not going to go back into a whole Be'iyun thing, but just something short from Shmir Shabbos Kilchasa. So he says, generally we all assume, lahalacha, there is a discussion, we assume it's a kli shemalachto le'isr, that it is muksa, because it's used for a mitzvah, and we don't put on tefillin l'shem mitzvah on Shabbos or Yom. But he does point out, by the way, there is an opinion that the Bir Halacha brings that it's actually a kli shemalachto leheter. But besides that, well, we don't use it as a mitzvah. We don't put it on. We don't put on tefillin. So that's the category. That's the category. Again, there's a discussion if is it muksa or not. Without getting into a whole discussion, he also points out, even if you hold, there's a whole question why not, and some say it should be machmon chisaron kis, but he says basically everyone says it's definitely not. And then he also points out that we know sometimes you are allowed to wear it. If it's to rescue it, l'kavod, to save it. Also, derech malbush, anytime, and lemaisa, since we hold it's tzarich kli shemalachto le'isr, we are always allowed to do kli shemalachto le'isr letzorach gufo or makomo. You're allowed to use it for itself. You want to wear it. You're cold. It'll warm you up. If you just wear it, not l'shem mitzvah, it's 100% mutter to wear. So you could actually use it on Yom Tov. Or you want to show someone the halachos of tefillin. You want to show Baal Tshuva, so a kid who's 12 years old, a 10-year-old kid, how to put on tefillin. You're allowed to take out your tefillin on Shabbos and Yom Tov and show them how to put it on. He writes it in there.
A lot of adults don't put it on.
Right. So, anyways, refresher courses for adults. Thank you, Moshe. So, whatever the case may be, there are permitted purposes of waiting to use it. Okay. Now, base. Tavkov Yudzayin base. Yisrael she'amar le'eni Yehudi mi'ba'od yom tikneli yonim l'machar. So a Jew goes to a non-Jew and he says, I want to get some fresh food. Can you please go to the store and buy it for me tomorrow in Yom Tov? You're telling him on Erev Yom Tov to do it for you specifically on Shabbos. Now you could eat on Yom Tov. Same thing, but you're right. We're talking about Yom Tov. Now the issue is, you're telling him to do something that's usher for you to do. You don't go to a store and buy things with money. So the issue is, here, we just learned before, there are times when you're allowed to go there and we're going to see again today, there are times you're allowed to go there to get food, but you don't buy it with actual money. Now, the isser it's whether you give him the money, whether you prepay the goy on Erev Yom Tov, or you tell him to buy it with money and you pay him back after Yom Tov. Either case, you're telling him to go to the store, take money and buy it, and that's you're not allowed to do. 100%. Asur. This is right. You're telling him to do something that you couldn't do yourself. That's right. We know Amira la'akum is asur even Erev Yom Tov or Erev Shabbos. You can't tell him and then benefit from it on Shabbos or Yom Tov. Aval ima sakvar, but you did it already. Erev Yom Tov. You didn't really know the halacha clearly. You thought maybe you're allowed to, and or whatever. You did it once, and he brought you the food on Yom Tov. Mutar le'echol mehem b'Yom Tov. You're allowed to eat it. It's 100% kosher. No reason to be machmer. Vu shelo yu mafrichim. But it can't be a case where you're talking about wild birds. It has to be a case where we're not worried about malacha, right? We just spent the past couple of days learning about anything that was done, the isra malacha, even safek, even ichutz atchum. So all those cases are a problem. In Seif Bet today, we're just discussing, you told him to buy it for you. Buying, there's a din derabanan of right? We don't want you to make a chumem maybe you're going to come to write things down. It's like almost like a gzera. So, or maybe it is. But anyways, the point is, if it's an issue of buying, so b'diavad, we let you eat it. If we're worried that maybe he did a malacha today, so then you cannot use it. You have to wait till the night, bichdei shiasu. Avalim ragil bekach, but you do this every week, every Yom Tov, every Shabbos, whatever. This is what you always do. Asur le'achol mehem. So the halacha is it's asur. That's not called b'diavad. It happened by mistake. Kevin shiragil bekach. This is what you always do. It's worse than mezi. So therefore, it's asur. Right? So the case that we're talking about a bet that's mutter is if it's done b'diavad, and it's not a malacha wasn't done. You know, or, even chutz tchum is a problem. Okay. Let's go on to Gimel, I think. Okay, Gimel. Lomar l'chavero malei li kli ze yain. You go into the store, and you tell the guy, fill up this kli with yain, with wine. And then you're going to pay him after Shabbos. So Dino b'Yom Tov kemo Shabbos. The halachas by Yom Tov is the same as it is by Shabbos. Just a quick recap. It's Kedeitin Siman Shin Chaf Gimel. If you basically give him a kli, it could be a measuring cup or any cup. And you know what the size is, or how many gallons, or quarts, or liters, whatever. So then, it's better. You're allowed to tell him to fill it up, and you'll pay him back for it, and you remember how much you took, and you pay him back the next day. What's asur over there, again, actually the Ramah is more mekel, but what's certainly asur is if you give him a measuring cup, he measures out exactly how much, and then he pours it into another cup for you to go home with. So that's, okay. Anyways, we can look it up over there. It's the same halacha there. And here, v'hu adin da asur lahatil goralot b'yom tov. Also, we don't do raffles, lotteries on Yom Tov, just like Shabbos. Okay, Daled. Lo yamor adam sa'orim li'tein lifnei behemto. Again, you're not allowed, similar to Shabbos, we're not allowed to take any measurements. We don't measure things out on Shabbos or Yom Tov. You want to feed your animal, ela misha'er v'notein la. Just don't measure it out and weigh it out an exact amount. Just, you know how much you normally give him. You see every day how much approximately it looks. Give him the same amount, and so it's a little more, a little less, without measuring. The only time we're allowed to measure on Yom Tov and Shabbos is letzarech mitzvah. And then it's majer lechatchila. Okay. Fine. Tavkuf Yud Chet. Dini Hotzah Mirishut L'Rishut B'Yom Tov. So now we're going to learn halachas of carrying, taking from one rishus to another, or in Rishus Rabim more than Daled Amos. Now, just a quick point out that this siman, just don't get confused. We're learning the halachas of Hotzah, not the halachas of Muksa. So it's not tiltul. It comes up a little bit, but the focus is Hotzah, not tiltul. Okay, because the halachas are different. Right? And tiltul we assume is generally only darabanan, and Hotzah on Yom Tov could be an Isser Daraisa with Malkus. Okay? So, okay. Aleph. Mitoch Shehutra Hotzah Litzorach Achila. Right? This is from the Gemara. So just like anyone's allowed to, whatever is mutter, Mitoch, just like we know Ochel Nefesh is permitted, and therefore since Ochel Nefesh is permitted, so too, anything that's normally done letzarech ochel nefesh, such as hotzah, is also permitted. Now, we talk shehutra hotzah letzarech achila, but then Chazal learned even more than that. Once anything that's normally permitted for ochel nefesh, hutra shelo letzarech, it also becomes a blanket heter shelo letzarech achila. Though, yeah, I should add the words achila so you understand correctly. It means it's even if it's not litzorach achila, it's mutter. Okay. Kegon, katan, velulav, v'sefer Torah, v'kelim. Any need for a katan, you want to take him, carry him from one place to another, he doesn't have to come with you. It's more fun for him, more fun for you. You want to bring him, you don't need to. You're allowed to, lechatchila, there's no reason to be machmer, because once it's, right, even if you carry him in Rishus Harabim, from one Rishus to another. Because once it's permitted, once carrying is permitted for ochel nefesh, it's permitted for any reason that you need. But we're going to see there has to be a little bit of a need. So when it says hutra shalol etzarach, I mean shalol etzarach achila, but there still has to be a little bit of etzarach, such as it makes you happy, you have a purpose, etzarach achila. That's tzarach just for your enjoyment. Or a lulav, you need it for the mitzvah. Sefer Torah also, you need a tzarach for a mitzvah. Right? These are all cases of shalol etzarach. In other words, there is a tzarach of simcha or a mitzvah, but not tzarach achila. V'kelim, and so too, any kelim, dishes, you could even wear jewelry, even if it's a case of carrying jewelry, whatever the case is, since you're enjoying it and it's good for you. Alright. Okay. Now, Mishnah Berurah points out, not that you need him to point it out, but he's very reliable, it also applies to Havara, Shchita, Hafiyah, Bishul. For all these things, Mitoch, Shehutra, L'tzorach, Ochel Nefesh, Shutra, also Shalol L'tzorach. But if you notice, he doesn't include Kiboy. Right? We learned that before. It does not include, that's the advantage of Havara over Kiboy. Just to bring that in. Okay. Let's go on. Haga. Hatzrichi lo k'tzat, but there must be some kind of etzarach. The question is, how far do you take it? So the Ramah takes it to its full extreme lakula, which is, O shemityare shelo yiganvu o shar pseida. You actually have no need for it whatsoever, except you're afraid if you leave it here, it might get stolen or ruined. So then, even the Ramah says, the fact that you're worried about it, that itself is already called letzarach. So he says, just to leave it behind, then you're not allowed to. Again, we're not discussing muksa, we're discussing hotzah.
Okay.
So that's really easy to get the two confused. So some things could be mutter or asr in this siman, for the issues, for the purposes of hotzah, but it could still be asr or mutter for tiltal, for muksa. So try not to get them two separate things. Okay. So therefore, now, so we just mentioned, according to the Ramah, he's mekel, for any tzarech, even you're afraid it might get stolen, just because you're worried about it. Mishnah Berurah points out that many poskim are machmer, that, and again, we're talking about a safek daraisa over here, perhaps, or probably, and some are machmer when it comes to, they don't apply shalol etzarach as a kula for losing money. So the question, so what happens if you bring something somewhere and you want to take it home? So basically it happens to be a machlokas, and whenever one could be machmer, in general they should. If you're bringing something somewhere, don't bring it back home with you unless you're going to have some kind of a purpose with it back home. Otherwise, it's better to be machmer. Again, depends on the case. And what's an example? Well, I'd say one example is, let's say people bring a machzor to show. That's brought down many times. Person a machzor to show, or a talis and a sitter, all right, and you want to come home with it. So if there's an eruv, there's no problem. What if there's no eruv? So then, the poskim, again, lechatchila, try and avoid it. But many of the poskim, including the Mishnah Berurah and the Chazon Ovadia, says, there's a concept of hitiro sofan mishum tchilasan. Because if we tell you can't bring it back home with you, you're not going to go to show with it in the first place. So, in those cases, the poskim are necessarily so happy, but they're mekel. And there is certainly what to rely on. Right? The main poskim are mekel. So that's for sure okay. If you're going to bring home a machzor that you might use, then for sure you're allowed to. But sometimes, the simanim is the next night, so that doesn't help you.
You could read 2 lines.
You could read 2 lines from you if you want to, but some of us know we have no interest and we won't. It depends on the case. But anyways, there is room to be meko, and yeah, if you are going to bring it home, try and use it. Talis, you're not going to use necessarily, but okay. Anyway, so that's okay. Let's go on. Again, there is what to rely on if absolutely necessary. Just try and avoid it. Okay. Chet. No, where are we now? Okay, let's keep reading on the top. Aval avanim uchayotze bahen aser. Now, stones or other things that have no purpose whatsoever, it would be aser. Now again, it might be aser from din muksa, and it might also be aser deraisa midin hotza'a. So it happens to, okay, so that's for both. Okay. Haga. Umutar lischok. Now the Ramah has another big kula here. Umutar, you're allowed to play ball. I don't know, soccer or basketball. Bikadur afilu birshus harabim. Maybe he means more of a gentle ball game. But whatever, you're allowed to play balls outside, even in a rishus harabim, right? When there's no air whatsoever, it's rishus harabim. You're only doing it just to play ball, just to have fun. So that's the Ramah Shita, that balls are not muksa. Again, generally, outdoor balls, Shulchan Aruch does hold its muksa. But, and since there is a tzarach, you're playing games, there's no issues of otzav. Mishnah Berurah quotes, the Rashal, who points out that this is really just a din for the kids, because for adults, it's completely inappropriate to be playing ball outside. Anyway, so let's keep reading. V'im hiniach eruv. Then the Ramah continues, and he says, now, if you had an eruv to connect, mutar l'tauto otzi kol sheyesh lo torat kli af al pi she'eino l'tzorach hayom klal. Then he says, now, something's very debatable. He says, now, let's say you have a bunch, basically we're not dealing with in Rishus Harabim anymore. You're dealing with homes in a neighborhood. And so the question is, so there's no Rishus Harabim, but you want to carry from one home to another. And let's say they're all connected with some kind of a string, tzuras a petach, or gates, whatever, you have walls. And now it's from one owner to another owner, right? So then, that's Hilchos Erevin, Erev Chatzeros. So he says, if you made an Erev Chatzeros for Yom Tov, so then you're allowed to carry from one place to another, even anything that has a kli, even if there's no tzarach whatsoever. Now again, no tzarach whatsoever means it's not a problem of hotza'a, because you have an Erev from one to another. If there would be no Erev, then, okay, so according to the Ramah, there'd be a problem. Let me get to that. But what I just wanted to point out to you, since it has a Torah's kli, it's not muksa midin that, and you're allowed to, so he says, even if there's no tzarach whatsoever for the day, you're allowed to carry it. But there are times,
Weekday soup or something like that.
But there are times where it could still be an isser derabanan of muksa. Because if something if you're just moving something just for fun, just, I don't know, fidgeting, it's a whole question. But there are times when muksa, you have moving something for no purpose whatsoever, there is actually an isser of muksa. The item itself is not muksa, but you're not allowed to move something just for the sake of just showing someone, look, I'm moving something. Anyways, so that's Din Muksa and Shabbos and Yontif. So anyways, back to this halacha. So he says you have to, anyways, you see according to the Ramah, do you need to make Eruv Chatzeros on Yom Tov? So according to the Ramah, there is a din of making an Eruv Chatzeros on Yom Tov, but most poskim say, what do you mean? On Yom Tov, there's no such thing as Eruvei Chatzeros. When Chazal made up a takana of Eruvei Chatzeros, you set up the bread, you say a bracha, the whole thing, it only applies for Shabbos. For Yom Tov, there's never a problem. You never need to combine one rishus to another on Yom Tov. That's what most poskim hold. The Ramaz says there should be an Eruv. So Lamaisa, don't ever make an Eruv specifically for Yom Tov. It would be a bracha levatala. But the Mishnah Berurah points out, whenever you make an Eruv for the whole year, normally we make an Eruv from Pesach to Pesach, whatever you do, it doesn't matter. Sorry, when you make it for the year, just have in mind it's for all the Shabbos of the whole year, including Yom Tov. So there's no issues of making a bracha levatala. If you don't have to include Yom Tov, but you should, if you might as well, to be machmar, to be. Yeah, but if he holds that there's a concept of an erev, and if you didn't make an erev, he says you can't carry from one to another. If you made an erev, then you can't carry from one to another, and that most poskim don't agree. If it's not Latzarach, exactly, as if it's Latzarach, you could do it with Rishus Harabim. Okay, let's go on. Okay. So just remember on Yom Tov, if there's no Erev whatsoever, and if there is no Erev and you're in a Rishus Harabim, so don't carry, if there's no Erev, don't carry something that has absolutely no usage for where you're going to. If it has a possible usage and therefore you want to have it with you, then that's okay. Base. Asr lahotzi, asr li Yisrael lahotzi shum davar b'yom tov l'tzarech eini Yehudi. Now, ochal nefesh is only a mutter for a Jew. So if you're going to carry something in Rishus Harabim or without an Erev, make sure you're doing it for a Jew. You can't carry it for a non-Jew. Haga, aval mutter lishloach lo ayidei eini Yehudi. Kegon shetzarech lahachzir mashkon le'eini Yehudi alam uchadol hamazeh. But you are allowed to. We don't take it that far. That we say Amira la'akum l'shvus v'makom tzarech, and this is considered tzarech. Pay him back. You don't get penalties. You don't get sakana issues. He doesn't get mad at you. The general rule is you are allowed to do it through Amira la'akum. Ask another non-Jew to deliver to a non-Jew, and then it's okay. And this would be even according to Moran Beit Yosef or Sfardim. Okay, Gimel. So if you look in the Beis Yosef, he agrees. Gimel. Lakach eitz she'eno meyuchad l'shapud v'tzalabo basar. Now, let's say you want to take a stick of wood. Now, we're talking about not something that's meyuchad for a kli. Anything, if it's meyuchad for a kli, it's for sure mutter. But let's say you want to, you just take a stick, a piece of wood, it's not, let's say to keep it simple, we're taking a piece of wood that's not muksa because it was in a pile of wood that was going to be used for flame, for fuel, for fire. It's on Yom Tov, you're allowed to cook. So this is part of your fuel. So you take a dry piece of wood that's able to be used for fuel. So you let it take it and put some meat on it, a shipud, a skewer, put on chunks of beef in order to make to grill it on your barbecue. Okay. But it's not miyuchad to be as a kli for all year. You just took it now for the first time. V'tzalabu basar, and you used it for cooking. Everything so far is no problem. But then once you finish, asur l'taltilo acharkach she'eno kli. Since it's not a permanent, you didn't, sharpen it, prepare it. It's not for all year usage. So it doesn't have a din of a kli. It just has a din of a stick of wood. So therefore, afterwards, once it becomes disgusting, afterwards that you use it, and it has all this meat juice on it, it becomes ma'us, and then it becomes muksa as you finish cooking it. So then, what do? Now the problem is, it's I guess sharp, and you don't want to leave it around. People can get cut or splinters, so you want to get it out of the way. If it wouldn't be a problem of being somewhat dangerous, hazardous, then it would be muksa, and you'd have to just drop it where you are. Again, kala achar yad, maybe you can move it. But we're talking about here, you want to move it tilto min atzad. So ela shomto. Shomto means either you throw it right away, and you're done with it, or you move it with tilto min atzad. You hold it funny, you drag it, which normally you don't drag things, you carry things. So you do something a little bit odd, and then it gives you a chance to move it. Umanicho v'keren zavit, and you put it in a corner in your house, kadei shelo yazilku bo, so it doesn't hurt anybody. Again, if it's indoors, in your property, then you have to do it tiltul min etzad in a strange way. And if it would be in Rishus Harabim, because of hezek, we don't want to hurt people in Rishus Harabim, Chazal said you can even carry it regular.
Why can't you burn it?
Or you can throw it into the fire, and because it was used for, the whole purpose was for hasaka. That was the purpose. I believe so. Afilu ein alav basar klal. You're allowed to move it a little bit, even though there's no meat on it whatsoever. Haga, uletzorech ochel nefesh, mutar letautel hakol afilu muktzah. Then, but the Ramah points out, if it's anything that's letzorech ochel nefesh, you're allowed to move it, even if it's something that's mamish muktzah. So the Ramah says you have what's it called? So the Ramah is more mekel. We know that the Ramah, a couple cases where the Shulchan Aruch says there is muktzah on Yom Tov, the Ramah says there's not. I'll just point out two examples, and it comes up again. One is if let's say you have something that's kind of in storage. We had this before. You put some food away in storage, and then you're allowed to, but it's still usable. It's not like raisins that are on the roof where they're completely unedible until they become fully dry. It's something that you put away for storage, but it's edible. So there the Shulchan Aruch paskins, that's muktzah on Yom Tov, not Shabbos, but Yom Tov it is. And the Ramah says nowhere mekel. Here also, let's say you have things that are muktzah in your way, and it's bothering you from, in this case you see the Ramah is more mekel. And also, let's say there's muktzah in your way, and you can't get to what you need to get to properly, the Ramah says it's 100% muktzah to move the muktzah for the purpose of ochel nefesh. If there's an item, a food item that's completely muktzah, or wood, or whatever, it's completely muktzah, then you're not allowed to move it and benefit from it. But you are allowed to push things away, even if normally you can't, but on Yom Tov you're allowed to as a ochel nefesh. Alright.